Hey guys, welcome back. Have you ever wondered if you should take investment for your business? Maybe you've heard of VC or private equity. Have you ever thought about that? Has it been something that you've considered? Well, I certainly have, and I've had a lot of experience going through and working with companies that have taken investment, and I wanted to mention a couple things you might want to consider. So, coming from a product management background, I've mostly worked at software startups in the last couple companies that I've been at. And then in my own personal company, I was bootstrapped. So we literally operated off of our savings. No one had a salary until we started to make money. And there are pros and cons to both. My bias up front, I'm largely against venture capital. I think there's a lot of conflict of interest in terms of how companies run, especially early on, that VC can kind of disincentivize the wrong behaviors from founders. So I'll start there. So number one, when you're building a company, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you're trying to solve a problem that somebody has, right? So you're thinking about the user, you're exercising user empathy, you're thinking about that person or that group of people and how you can help them, how you can solve something that they're dealing with, how you can alleviate a challenge that they have. And that's a great place to be because you're really just answering to one person, right? So you might have an idea or you might have already validated a way to solve a problem for somebody, but you're still answering to just that one customer. You're still answering to that one user base, not one customer as in a single person, but one archetype, if you will. And that's a nice place because it allows you to focus in. You can create your vision for a solution around them. You're constantly iterating and getting feedback from them, right? So like, if you release a feature or you release something that's not well received, you don't maybe do more of that thing. You do more of maybe what people are asking for, which is like a whole nother video because everyone is going to tell you that they want a Ferrari, but most people only need a Honda Civic. And so you really want to be careful in terms of just operating purely on feedback because user feedback can be very misleading. I've spent a lot of my own savings learning that lesson the hard way. But getting back on topic, making sure you're building for one person, it really simplifies things when you're really just building for one user archetype. When you start to bring venture capital in, there's a bunch of things that happen. Number one, you're expected to have, hyper growth, right? Like most of the time, these investors are not bringing in money for you to slowly grow. They want a return on their investment. And they want it quickly. Quickly being maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 36 months. They want to see exponential growth very quickly. That's why they give you the money. And this creates a lot of pressure. I've seen a lot of people, friends of mine, founders that I've worked for in previous companies that lose a lot of sleep and a lot of quality of life playing this game of like, I took this money, I have to answer, it's not growing as fast. And what begins to happen is, and I think one of the reasons that product management as a role even really exists, because if you think about it, Google Product Manager on Google, and you'll sometimes see the role is oversimplified to a PM as a mini CEO of a company. Well, if a CEO is already at a company or a founder is already at a company, why the hell do you need a mini CEO? It really begs asking the question. But what happens is, and I think a large reason that this role has become so popular in the last decade or two is because CEOs start to get pulled away when they take capital, when they take VC or private equity funding. They start to move away from the product, move away from the customer, move away from what they were originally trying to solve for, and they start doing investor decks, investor presentations. It takes months to get fundraising. It takes, a ton of time to create forecasting worksheets and explaining what the pipeline is going to be. And a lot of times it's all BS anyway. It's all, forecasted. What's a forecast? You have no idea what's going to happen. You could have people in the pipeline, and a lot of times sales teams, sales managers, there's so much pressure on them to put something on the forecast. I know from sales roles that I've been in, and when I was in this position, I certainly saw it happen at many companies, ones I've been at, ones I've been affiliated with, where the sales managers need to put something on that list because they don't want to get let go and they don't want their teams to get in trouble. So they put on a lead on the list of, forecasted money that's going to come in that they've maybe spoken to once. Like it's like not even a warm lead. And so there's this urgency and so much time consumption in preparing and documenting information just for venture capital. And it takes away critical time from the founding team, a lot of times from the CEO or the founding technical and non-technical counterparts both end up spending a lot of time creating information to appease VCs. Not all of it's bad. I'm not saying it's all bad. I don't think, like I said in a previous video, things aren't black or white. There's pros and cons to everything. When you're looking at a company that's high production, they're doing a lot of production. They have maybe they're vertically integrated, right? Like Tesla is a great example. I don't think you can start that company without some level of an investment. Like Elon Musk might be one of the wealthiest people in the world right now. I'm sure he wasn't back when he started Tesla, but it's like they still needed, coming out of PayPal, having a ton of money, he still needed capital in addition to what he had in order to get things going. And so a company like that that's building their own steering wheels and headlights and seats and trying to innovate in these spaces where GM and other companies literally just outsource and have people, create the taillights in Korea or something for them on their behalf, and then they install them. Like that is a whole nother space. So there's definitely a time and a place for venture capital. I just think for 90% of companies, like I'm looking at you, SaaS, people that want to build a software company or a SaaS specific company. I think for a lot of the companies that are out there, like if you can't figure out how to do it bootstrap, you probably shouldn't take the capital. Point number one, because it pulls the most critical people away from solving the core problems that they set out to solve. Number two is kind of along the same vein. If you've ever heard the phrase, what is it? You can't serve two masters. I think that's a really good depiction of what starts to happen when you take venture capital. And so we talked before about answering to the customer, building for the customer, having empathy for them, right? And so that's maybe how you start out. And then now you have your vision as a CEO. So you're kind of answering to yourself in a way, right? Because you're like, this is the problem today. Here's how I see us solving it over time. That contributes to, what ability you have to scale, right? Unless you're solving something super niche and super small and that's all you ever want to do. But for most people, you want to solve something that's quite large, or it starts small or niche and then it expands over time, right? So you have your vision, you have the problem that your customer base is facing today, and then where you think that that's going to go. And then when you add in venture capital, now you're adding in a third master that you've got to serve, right? So, and this one's the most important because generally speaking, unless you're bootstrapped or unless you have some weird setup and you've gotten VC or private equity and you're not taking any salary, maybe you've had previous exits, most people take a salary, most founders take a salary in addition to equity. And a lot of times that comes from whatever they fundraised. So now you have these people who are telling you how to build the thing that are, paying your paycheck. It becomes really hard to push back and say no. A couple examples. There was a company that I was working at quite a while ago. We sold some financial things and some financial based products. Okay. And most of the products were for people early on. The products were for people that were struggling they had bad credit. They were struggling to make ends meet, right? And there was a reason that they needed to tap into some of these financial products. And so I as a product manager, I'm speaking with people on the phone. One of the instances for me was like a crazy situation where it was this family who needed to get open heart surgery for their 18-year-old son, right? And so they had bad credit because of a situation that really wasn't their fault. They took in a parent, a mother-in-law, and this person had dementia, and so they weren't paying their bills, and so they took them in, and it ended up hurting this mother and father of the house's credit. So the grandparent, if you will, impacted their credit because they were living together or whatever the situation was, and they didn't have access to credit the way that ideally they would have been able to have, so they could have taken a loan out to get their son the help he needed. And so you think about that scenario, right? And then you think about who's a venture capital person or somebody that's operating a syndicated fund, and they're a fund manager and they're giving you money, and it's like, do they have a 500 credit score? Do they have a 600 credit score? Probably not. If someone in their life needed a serious operation, would they be getting some, product it was a good product. I'm not discounting that company, but would they work craftily with, mortgaging their house or doing different things to get cash to pay for this thing? Probably not. And so what ends up happening is you have this, a venture capital firm or multiple of them or private equity that's telling you how to build a thing that they literally know nothing about, that they have zero empathy or ability to understand what that product's like. And you end up serving three masters, which is challenging in and of itself. And then the most important of which is cutting your paycheck, and you've got to answer to them, and they're telling you how to build something that they don't really fully understand. Now, I'm not saying venture capital, it's always this way. I mean, there are products like, I was thinking about creating a real estate SaaS product, and it was a really good fit for venture capital in a lot of ways. It needed speed to market to deal with some things that are going on in the National Association of Realtors right now, because otherwise it would have wound up in lawsuits. And so taking capital to grow quickly would have avoided lawsuits for me. And the reason why this company might have been a better fit is because most VCs, most people that have private equity or can offer that, or maybe their fund manager, right? A lot of these people have property investments. They understand real estate. They understand that market quite well. And so that market, they can probably relate to better, and they could give me better feedback on, and they could connect me with people more relevant to the problem I'm trying to solve. So I'm not saying it doesn't always work. I'm just saying for the company that's out there trying to do some AI bot or some chatbot thing or whatever, it's not always the best idea to just run after capital. It can be a total distraction away from you solving the problem that you set out to solve. A lot of times venture capital firms at companies I've worked at have been, have promised to be this great partner, and they're going to take you to the promised land, and they're going to connect you with all these people in their network and help you grow. And that in and of itself can be a problem. I've worked, as a salesperson in my previous company when we were solving challenges in the HR software space and employee engagement. We were, in 2016, there was a lot of people in that space. And so I messaged Gary Vee's company, all kinds of different companies that I met with and spoke to people. And they're like, I would hear quite often like, hey, we really love your product. We know it's like best in class, but like our VC, the firm that invests in us, or one of our leading investors, has this employee engagement thing, and we're not allowed to buy anything outside of the portfolio. And so we have to buy this product from whoever. So taking venture capital can determine how you run your company in terms of like what hires you make, what software you're buying. And then in a lot of instances, one of the things that I think is, terrifying for a lot of founders is you can be let go. Like, you can literally start your company, be obsessed with solving this problem, and then you can be in a position where, they don't like the way you're going about it, or you're not doing it as, you're hyper growth, right? They're giving you millions of dollars to grow this thing quickly so they can get a return. And so if you're not doing that at the speed that they're looking for, you could be on the chopping block. And that goes into the last point that I want to end on, which is like, I always joke in a previous video, organic intelligence is something I talk about. But growing organically is really good. You have a little bit more of a frugal mindset. For me, having started my own company, I've never been able to work for someone else and think about spending money as if it were someone else's. I'm always thinking about it as if it's mine, as if I'm back to 2016 and it's like, the money's coming out of my Best Buy account, buying these laptops or whatever. Should we get discount gift cards or use Ebates or whatever to like make sure we're optimizing every purchase? And that's not the way for a lot of people. I think when a lot of founders take money, they're like, oh, I don't know. Someone told me to spend $50,000 a month on Facebook ads. Like, we're just going to get this agency and we're going to do this. And you start to make decisions that are, you can turn into a spendthrift because it's not your money. So you're not spending it like you would yours. And a good analogy of that is when people talk about college or any education, it's like, if people aren't paying themselves, they're not paying attention. That's something Russell Brunson says a lot that I really agree with. When you pay for your own education, and I'm not docking people that have, had it paid for by their parents or whatever. I was lucky to have some help, so I'm really grateful for that. But if you don't pay for any of it, how can you value it as much as the person that literally was working $6 an hour, 60 hours a week to put themselves through, and it took them 8 years or 6 years to go finish their college. There's just a different level of appreciation there, and it's the same thing. When you bootstrap it, and you bootstrap your company, at least for the first 6 months, or at least for the first year, whatever, you spend a little bit more intelligently. You're not buying, you're doing the best with what you have. You're thinking creatively how to solve problems, and that can lead you and your business to having much more of a competitive advantage than other people that are playing in your space. So I hope this helps you. Those are some of the ways that I would think about. I would be thinking through before I took private equity investment or venture capital investment or even friends and family investment. I hope this helps you.